appraisal of curriculum reform. Most of this comes from John Goodlad's NSSE, remember them? National Society for the Study of Education, their 65th or 7th yearbook, I don't know how it fits there. His positive assessments of the curriculum reform. These were some of the good things that he found. Involvement of outside sources. These are other people getting involved in public school curricula. Scholars, college profs and the like. Scientists, college profs and the like. Expanded use of media. We were supposed to be experimental. We were supposed to be hands-on. Folks are still calling for that. Use of materials other than textbooks. And when I first came here in 1972, I ordered some ISCS science kits for our library. The library informed me that it could not do that because it didn't have a form for anything other than textbooks. Now that was changed, but can you imagine that? You can't get anything in that library if it's not a textbook. Well, now you can, because the post-Sputnik curriculum reform led to a new concept of the library. They are now media centers as opposed to just repositories for the collections of books. More from Goodlad. Increased availability of government money. That could be seen as a negative if you're one of those no federal involvement in education people. It is, well, the foot's already in the door. This is just easing the door open a little bit more. Colleges became used to a flow of soft money. It was getting all of this money now from the government in the form of science curriculum packages. Remember what happened to the PEA when the money went away? Soft money is good. The only problem is they usually give it to you for a while with the expectation that you will pick it up. And so many people on soft money positions lost them after a while. Increased availability of in-service opportunities. When I was pondering taking advantage of the National Science Foundation, this was back in '62, there was a book of every conceivable NSF institute in the country. And so I looked through the book. My wife's uncle was a $1-a-year man in Syracuse University's medical school. He was an eye doctor, an eye surgeon. So I figured, well, with Uncle Joe, I can probably get into Syracuse. So I applied for Syracuse and got in. Later on, I applied to Wisconsin and got in. Mobility. 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 There are some people that spend their entire lives in the same country. Well, that's true. In the same state, some in the same county, some on the same street. Spend their entire lives there. Thanks now to post-Sputnik, clods from New York like me can get PhDs from Wisconsin and jobs in Texas. Talk about mobility. And on the negative side, people like you get to listen to me. No, that's not one of them, although it might be. One of the criticisms of the new packages was that they spent too much attention on the separation of the disciplines. Chemistry was chemistry, physics was physics, biology was biology, and never the twain shall meet. They ignored interrelationships like people wanted us to do during the 8-year study. Another complaint: they were not for the average kid. And we talked about the fact that they dealt in concepts yesterday. A concept is abstract. Not everyone has the ability to think in the abstract. Think back to what you know of Piaget's stages. Not everyone arises at that final stage of abstract thinking. So lots of people were saying, well, these are great courses for the very bright kids, but they're not for the average kid, and they're certainly not for the below average kid. So there's early opposition from the learner corner. Remember, we got the learner, society, and the disciplines as the corners of our triangle, our objectives triangle. Top-down planning. This all came from the top down to the teachers. Not many classroom teachers were involved in the early stages of the planning. Back with life adjustment education, that began with the teachers. The teachers built those curriculum packages, not here. This is the biggest fault of most pre-total quality management planning packages. We hadn't discovered total quality management planning yet. And so this was top down. More negatives. You had to buy the whole enchilada. You wanted PSSC physics, you had to buy the PSSC physics kits, you had to buy the PSSC physics equipment, you had to buy the PSSC book, and that was all owned by D.C. Heath Publishing Company. If you wanted to pick and choose, well, I'll take this, and I'll take this, and I'll take this, it cost you more to do that. So you had to buy the whole enchilada. You were in or you were out. And there were book companies, like in what I just illustrated, D.C. Heath, with sole rights. Picking and choosing costs you more money. Thus, we have a lockstep approach. Now, the lockstep may be superior in the minds of some to what had gone on before it, but it was another rut. And some people said, we just substituted one rut for another. And then the worst thing to happen, the tests did not change. Well, what happened was the test scores went down and went down and went down and went down. These were the test scores in science now. Looking back, it was discovered that the tests were still testing at the fact level, whereas the kids were being taught at the concept level. And remember what I said about abstract thinking. Many kids could not generalize from the concept down to the fact. When I went to school, we learned that one atom was bigger or smaller than another atom. If I'd have taken that class, and I taught that class later on, where we learned that as you go this way on the periodic chart, the atoms get larger and the ions get smaller. Okay, from that, I should be able to generalize whether calcium is bigger than sodium or not. Many kids could not do that. Higher education, easing on into the gathering twilight. The baby boomers hit college. The dissatisfaction leading to the campus violence of the mid-1960s. And as we said earlier, free speech was the thing out at Berkeley, California, which instigated the first, shall we say, uprising. From there it spread to civil rights. From there the campus violence spread to Vietnam and the military-industrial complex. We've got the emergence of something known as a multiversity, Clark Kerr and the like. The depersonalization of people. We are now known by our numbers rather than our names. The university is service station. Drop in, drop out. Come take some courses, go away, come back, take some more courses. Athletics as a sacred cow. And, you know, that's really not a fair one, because if you can remember back to the days of camp and stag, athletics has almost always been a sacred cow. Schools are known by their athletic programs. But nevertheless, today we have the haves and the have-nots with respect to football. We're griping about who can get into the final playoff game. You have to be in a certain level of play in order to qualify. So we're still grouching about that.